I know I said I'd cool it with the Celeste mods, but this one's kind of different. It's getting over it, Celeste. So it's a kind of implementation of getting over it in Pico 8 that just happens to look like Celeste. It's a different game entirely, and it's a very cool game for what it's worth. It's not an exact like implementation of getting over it. Mechanically, it's kind of different because you can click to give yourself a little boost. That was probably a limitation, if I had to guess, because obviously in getting over it, you have two arms, and the actual head of the hammer can be a different distance from your body than it starts at. But in this one, the hammerhead is always at the same starting distance from Madeline. So there would be no way under that system to launch yourself upwards, which would make the game kind of difficult, kind of impossible probably. I mean, you'd just design around it, right? But it would be less interesting because the only thing you could do is like hook onto stuff. So it is mechanically different from Getting Over It. But I mean, I've talked a lot about it on the channel before. Getting Over It's a sick game. It's just really awesome. I really, really like it. And I just saw like, oh, it's another implementation of Getting Over It. Like, let's give it a try, right? Obviously, I played that climbing game that Bennett Foddy made. I thought that was quite fun, but also quite difficult, like considerably. This I'm expecting to be slightly difficult, but very doable. That's kind of what I'm expecting from Celeste Getting Over It. I don't know if that means I will actually do it, because the getting it over it proper took me like 20 hours to beat the first time, which I think is pretty slow. Like even for a first time completion, I feel like that's pretty slow. The thing is, I've always said this, I'm not that good at games. Which is weird because I play games competitively and I don't always suck at them. I like to think I'm kind of okay at Melee. I'm not good, but I'm not the worst either. So how can those two things be true? That I'm not good at games and that I can, you know, more or less compete with people? Well, the answer is that on a first playthrough, I'm typically worse than average at games. But I'm pretty decent at picking up the skills and committing to a game, that at least one that I find fun, that I can get better at. It started kind of with Smash Brothers. When Smash 4 came out, I started watching Alpharad, and Alpharad had the How to Play 101 series, and that kind of introduced me to the idea of competitive Smash Brothers, because although those videos are silly, there's an awful lot in those videos about you know, tech and better playing and stuff like that. And back then when Smash 4 came out, my kind of experience with Smash was, you know, you play with items on and you play on random stages, and eventually I kind of got this idea that like, oh, if we want to test who's really the better Smash player, then we go on Final Destination and we duke it out and we play Brawl. And it was like I was playing Olimar because Pikmin was one of my favorite games. Or I was playing Pit because I liked Kid Icarus Uprising, which I think came out during the Smash 4 or like around that time. So, you know, but I really can't do much better than this. This is kind of astounding. so that was kind of my introduction to like competitive games, and I didn't get very good at Smash 4, but I learned the tech. And I was like, yeah, I can perfect pivot and stuff. And I wasn't good at the game. If you go on my YouTube channel though, Melon Keeper, not gold, just regular old Melon Keeper, you can scroll down to the bottom or sort by oldest, and you'll find that there's a video on my channel called World's Worst Little Mac, and it was my first ever combo video in a Smash game, and it's not good. The combos are not particularly impressive or anything, but that was kind of my first foray into the competitive games thing. That was me showing off, and it wasn't quite near the end of Smash 4's lifespan. I think that video came out in 2015-16, something like that, maybe early 2016. The point is, that was me kind of showing off, like, hey, I'm actually good enough at this game now to be better than other people, which, you know, up until that point was just not a concept. And then it was speedrunning. You know, before it was Melee, it was speedrunning. I got into Melee and I was interested in it. I even played Slippy a bit in like 2019 and stuff. Though at the time, it was just like, it's faster Melee on Anther's Ladder. But it was technically still Slippy because it had the replay functionality. It was just the version of Slippy before Slippy became the one-stop interface for all of your online Melee needs. Like people, not people like who started Melee during COVID, they don't know, like, Slippy isn't the online bit. Slippy is primarily the replay bit. We had online before Slippy, which is kind of funny, that people just kind of associate the two. I mean, they are so intrinsically kind of linked that it's not a big distinction, but it is funny that in their mind, in some people's mind, Slippy is rollback. That is what Slippy is, and that's what Slippy offers to Melee. But actually, the replay functionality was so huge at the time when it came out. I got into speedrunning because of Getting Over It. That was the game that, like, I first speedrun. I think I did some, like, target tests of Brawl Minus, but then that comes back to the Smash thing, right? My first introduction to proper full game speedrunning was Bennett Foddy's Getting Over It, and it completely transformed my life. When I started speedrunning other games, when I started speedrunning Tokobot, it completely changed my life. And I'm pretty good at some of the games that I speedrun. I'm pretty good at the games that I speedrun, but I didn't get there by being amazing at them on a first try, right? I got there by the practice, and I'm pretty good at practicing. I'm pretty good at figuring stuff out. Like, for example, when it came to learning the Ben 10 Power Trip speedrun, all of the stuff was in place there. Like, I didn't discover most of the glitches or tricks, but there was no tutorial. I learned everything I learned about that game from referencing the Twitch VOD of the, at the time, world record. I mean, that's not super easy to do, not super accessible. I'm not saying it was hard work, but it would have stopped. There's a person who would have been stopped by that, and it wasn't me, right? I wasn't stopped by that hurdle. And I think that's one of my greatest strengths in speedrunning is the kind of behind the scenes stuff. And someone has to do it, right? Like, no one gets anywhere without tutorials and stuff. Well, that's not entirely true, but like, it makes a community so much better to have those resources than not. So I don't know. Is there any way I can scam this? I'm really not able to do it the proper way. Oh my god, I scammed it. No way! Wait. Speaking of figuring out speedrun stuff, That was awesome. Okay, I'm done now. That was hard enough on its own.